What's going on, ProGuides family? It's your host Sergeant Frost, and today we're bringing you one tip for every agent. No matter if you play Astra or Skye, Neon or Chamber, or you just want to learn a new agent more easily. These tips can help you master your agent with more ease and also help break a few myths about how players often think you should play. And of course, if you want more personalized help with mastering an agent or building up your skills as a player, make sure to visit ProGuides.com, where our Radiant and Immortal coaches are more than happy to guide you on the right path. The link is in the description if you're interested, and let's jump right into it. JETT is an agent everyone knows is strong, and when we watch pro play, she might even give off a bit of an op as an overpowered vibe. Her op is great, and her knives can single-handedly win an eco round. JETT knives are really strong, but for many players, it's also the easiest way to whiff kills and then tilt. JETT's knives are certainly better than a normal gun, but they're a bit harder to use. The key lies in two things: good tracking and almost never standing still. When using JETT knives, you need to be on the move at all times, even when taking a fight. The reason JETT knives are so strong and can win rounds so easily even against pros is because it allows you to move quickly, be hard to hit, and be unpredictable while being perfectly accurate as long as your aim is able to keep up. But since the way you use knives feels so different, it's a good idea to get a feel for knives and practice them separately in order to get comfortable using them in games so you can get that Twitter clip ace. For Sage, be mindful about how you use your wall. In the past, people thought that Sage's wall was best used to stall areas that were already contested like mid on split, or put up a wall to avoid lurkers like Tube on Icebox. But the meta has certainly developed and people have found much better ways to use it, especially in pro play. Since the many nerfs the Sage wall has received, using it predictably and assuming it'll hold back entire teams is pretty troll. Sage walls on the defensive side nowadays are mostly used to gain deeper control to allow your team more space and gain crucial information at the same time. Examples of these walls on main entrances like Split A, but on maps like Icebox you can even use it in deep mid. That way, if the enemy tries to break it immediately, your entire team gains a lot of info you might not have had without using it. And if they don't break it, you'll have more room to play around. For Viper, one thing that every Viper needs to keep in mind is that you can pick up your orb while it's active. And when you do that, you create a really sick peek that's really hard to counter. It's also hard to predict as well, which makes it even more powerful when used well. Your Poison Cloud is super strong, and it can get you out of some sticky situations, both aggressively and defensively. So use it when you can. And also, remember to pick up your orb before you rotate for a retake, because having a smoke on hand can completely change the course of a retake. Alright, now before we move on to Neon, let's first cover our question of the day. Today's question being, what's your most played agent and why? My most played agent in the past is definitely KO. He's one of my favorite agents and I love his utility and his kit overall, as it's very useful and impactful. But I do have to admit, recently I've been playing a lot more Yoru as a duelist. Yoru is a fantastic outplay agent for smarter players, and his kit has a lot of room to play with in terms of outsmarting and outplaying enemies. Learning the ins and outs of Yoru's kit can really make the difference in a game, and he's one of the most fun duelists to play in my opinion. Let us know who your most played agent is in the comment section down below. Now let's get right back into the video. Now, Neon is definitely an underrated agent. Her stuns are strong, her sprint is great, and her wall is perhaps misunderstood. The key to using her wall well, however, lies in using it to apply pressure, not just to run in an entry frag. The way you apply pressure with your wall is splitting up multiple angles and forcing your opponents to have to watch multiple angles at once. If you wall from right side main to stairs on Ascent B, for example, you block off CT and market by fast lane directly, but you also block off switch to get easy access. You block off stairs and lane to support players spawn and market, and you can use it to peek from all kinds of weird angles. This is a very important thing to consider when using Neon's wall. When playing Breach, you of course want to be a good support player, but the way you do that is not through chasing your teammates around and using your util whenever they ask you to. Instead, positioning yourself to support preemptively, make sure you're in a good position to support and help your teammate without putting yourself at risk of getting shot. Take Split for example. If your teammates want to fight mid, an excellent position is Market. It allows you to stun all of heaven and then you can follow it up with a flash after. If you follow them mid though, you're sure able to flash too, but your stun won't be nearly as effective as you might even get caught out with your slow to use utility. Now, KILLJOY is another agent that seems super simple, but actually has quite an advanced touch to it. If you really want to get max value out of her, you gotta make sure that you mix up your turret and alarm bot placement. A lot of KILLJOYs like having their turret, alarm bot, and mollies all in the same spot, as it feels like a guaranteed hold. But realistically, it's not, and you get a lot more guaranteed value by having your setup watch a lot of ground, rather than just a small amount with a lot of utility. One of the best ways to do that is by having your turret watch multiple angles, so that you can save your alarm bot for either an extra angle that's unwatched, or even better, to gain deeper map control by placing it somewhere after the barriers go down. For Astra, the tip is rather simple, but one of the most important nonetheless, and that's to always keep 1 or 2 stars on you. As Astra, you need to be able to play stars the moment you need them. With the Astra nerfs that reduce maximum stars to 4, and also increasing the cooldown, you have to be careful with putting yourself in a bad spot with stars by placing too many down at once. The worst thing you can tell your teammate when he asks for a smoke is, "Sure man, I got you, just wait 25 seconds till my star recharges." On KO, try to be mindful of your surroundings. A lot of people love to just right-click flashes, which is pretty strong already, but some of the best flashes are achieved by not pop flashing an angle, but by throwing an uncontestable left click. Look at Haven's windows for example. You can easily toss a flash off the side, and it allows you to peek as the flash pops, instead of right after it, making it much harder for the opponents to punish you as well as causing them to hesitate about whether they should keep holding the angle or not. Speaking of flashes, when playing Reyna, make sure to basically always flash high. It makes it so that opponents have to flick up then down in order to kill you, and by flashing higher, you cover more ground than you could if you were flashing low. This gives you much more safety when entering and also can help blind anyone who might be trying to hide and catch a timing. For Omen with the recent changes, it's good to know you're faster teleporting than sprinting, and with the ground you can cover it's almost like a jet dash, except you're fully invisible crossing angles. This means it can be used very well as an aggressive play on Haven A for example. You can quickly cross to short and catch players off guard since there's no way for them to know you already teleported across. I know Raze is often seen as a pretty empty-headed agent, but there is a lot of big brain potential there. Of course, you have the satchels which allows you to do some pretty fun stuff, but also your paint shells have some pretty cool uses. Like for example, nading a Sova as he goes to drone. If you pay close attention, it's pretty easy to read where a Sova is droning from. And if you nade them then, you can also deal a good amount of damage and also get a drone destroyed. Just remember, if you nade high, your nade explodes in midair, which makes the second round of explosives cover a lot more ground, which also means that it can zone off enemies for much longer even though the damage is weaker. On Sova, the most important thing is properly using your drone. It's easily one of the strongest abilities in the game if you use it right, and you can get a lot of value from it. Rule 1 is to always have a teammate nearby to follow, but it's also very important to make sure you clear all annoying angles, and don't waste on angles you could easily clear without it. Oh, and also if you drone higher, it's easier to clear angles and you have a lot more vision, so pay some attention to that too. On Phoenix, one of the best ways to flash an angle is to flash the opposite of how perhaps it was intended. So instead of curving your flash around the wall, you have it pop behind you as you go to peek. That way you can peek off your flash a lot faster, without having to worry about flashing yourself. But there is a catch. Your flash goes slightly to the opposite angle before it curves around. So if you stand too close to it, you can bounce it pretty weirdly. Sometimes it even goes backwards to end up behind you. So yeah, definitely use this neat trick. But be careful you don't stand too close or it might just backfire. On CYPHER, make sure to always pre-aim cages before you enter your camera. Going into a camera can be pretty disorienting, and you're very likely to forget where exactly your crosshair is placed. Pre-aiming cages solves this issue in a way, but much more importantly, it allows you to insta-cage wherever you spot an enemy. Instead of having to exit your camera, look for your cage then activate it, which can take up to 2 seconds. All you have to do is mindlessly just press E, F there, job's done. And you're able to peek or do whatever you need to do instantly. On SKYE, a cool way to flash for yourself is by aiming at a wall, letting your bird fly free, then activating it after it goes past a corner. That way you have your gun out much quicker and you can instantly frag whoever you blind. A good thing to know on Brimstone is that his stim pack completely counters Astra sucks. Running through a suck normally is pretty scary, but with the stim pack, it's like it's not even there. You can really just run through, so if Astra isn't in a bad enough state already, well, Brim counters her too. Unlucky to be honest. On Chamber, don't use both of your trips to watch flank, or at least not every round. A great way to use them is to instead have one save for once you get onto a site, that way you can trip off an angle, and holding down the site will be a lot easier. If you're feeling extra cheeky, you can even add an Astra suck, which means that if you combo it right, your opponents can't move at all. Lastly, Yoru. And well, for Yoru, it seems like he's actually quite good now, especially on maps like Bind where he can create a lot of chaos with the teleporters. Yoru is all about chaos and making your opponents have to worry about a million angles at once. A lot of his impact is hard to measure, but if you play him right, you can have a lot of it. I can already spoil, we're going to have a more in-depth guide coming out soon, so stay tuned for if you want to level up your Yoru play. Anyways guys, that's all the agents, so make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you liked the video and want to see more like it. This has been your host Sergeant Frost, and I'll see you guys in the next video.